Welcome to episode 46 of the Practice Squad, a show where we talk about football, shoot the breeze, and make even the replacement refs cringe. I'm your host and fourth string quarterback, Jeremy, joined each and every week by my co host and backup long snapper, Joseph. How's it going, man?
Oh, so many things happened this playoffs, and not very, thrilled about it. So we'll get there.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a difficult conversation about both of our teams in this episode, but we'll get there a little bit later. So we're live right here on YouTube every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. If you like what you hear and want to support us, don't hesitate to like, share, and if you're feeling extra generous, subscribe. You can like, share, and subscribe even if you think you could run this show better than us. So this week we've got a wild divisional matchup to talk about, some playoff analysis to crunch, commentators to make fun of, and as always, we'll round out the show with our predictions. So let's get started with our first segment of the night, which is our game of the week, which was one of the best we've had all year, I think, as far as
Yes.
games of the week go. Um, Everything you could want from a divisional matchup was in this game. Ravens at Browns, uh, 89 points. And I usually say that I don't like super high scoring games, but this one was an exception because of uh, there was just something about it being a divisional matchup and the way that the teams were able to occasionally stop each other at critical moments that was uh, really exciting. So,
There was also 9 rushing touchdowns,
yes.
which tied a record from 1922.
Really?
Yeah, there was
Wow.
some
Okay.
teams.
I
I
did
don't think
not
those
I did
teams.
not realize that. I did
Yeah,
see it. I think all of the touchdowns try and find the score real quick. So there were I think the Ravens had what, 6 rushing touchdowns
five.
or 5 rushing touchdowns, and the Browns had 4, right?
Yeah, and
And
I
2
think there.
passing
I think there
touchdowns.
were. I think there were 8 rushing touchdowns before a single passing touchdown occurred.
That sounds
I
about right.
think.
Yeah, because I think the passing touchdowns came later in the second half when they kept going back and forth.
Yeah. So
Um,
those teams don't exist anymore from 1922. And in that game, one team had all 9 touchdowns.
well,
But just that's so
somebody
crazy.
forgot to tell both the Ravens and the Browns that this is a passing league. Um, so yeah, like where do you even want to start with this one? There's so much we could talk about. Um, I I guess the one, so I don't want to dive too far forward. I think the main things I have to say are actually from the second half, because the first half was a little slower. I think they went into halftime 21-14, I think.
Well, how
Ravens were
about
up by 7.
the highlights that I have from the first half?
Yeah, go for it.
I do this. So, first thing, there was that roughing the passer call where the guy, I think it was John, um, his name, number 99 for the Ravens, and he hit Mayfield. And it looked like a good hit, but because of the helmet to face mask contact, they threw a penalty. So it's one of those ones where it's like, it just, they didn't show the replay, so I had to watch the replay in the condensed. Um, it looked like just a good hit, but his helmet did hit the face mask, so it's one of those like, yeah, by rule it has to be called.
Yeah.
Um, and then how about Gus Edwards with that epic touchdown in the middle of the second quarter?
Oh, the one
Uh,
where that one corner came and slammed into him.
no, 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 no. I think this is the one. Isn't this the one where he dove, and
I think the one I'm thinking of maybe was in the second half. So yeah,
okay,
there was. Oh,
there's one where I'm pretty
the one where
he
he
dove.
died. Yeah, yeah, he dives in the corner and hits the pylon.
Yeah, he like barely makes it. Like a yeah, it was like a dot. Yeah, yeah. He was
Yeah,
running
that
with guys in
was.
front of him, and he dove, and he just extended out before his elbow and his knee hits.
Yeah,
And yeah, it was a really epic run. And then how about the end of the second, which led to Lamar's rushing touchdown to go up 21-7, 21-14. He had that throw to Andrews, that really long throw to Andrews.
yeah.
And dude, Mark Andrews So he was actually the leading rusher. I'm sorry, the leading receiver in the entire game with 78 yards, and he had 5 receptions, but several of those were big receptions. Some were at the end of the game, and Andrews was just clutch. Like he just made big receptions in that game.
Yeah,
Um,
I think he made one catch on that last drive that where Jackson had to throw like 3 or 4 passes to get them in field goal range.
yeah,
I
he
think
did.
he made one of those critical catches.
Did.
Yeah, he played well. Uh yeah, I thought I honestly there was one thing that was going against the Ravens in this game, which I'll get to in a few minutes. But the Browns, I felt like they should have won this game because they should have burned more clock at the end and not given the Ravens 54 seconds to get in field goal range. That just I felt like they needed to score that touchdown at the end because they went so there was that whole sequence where Lamar Jackson went to the locker room. Their backup Trace McSorley came out and played like I don't know 7 or 8 snaps, something like that. He had 4 pass attempts and 2 rushing attempts, and I think he handed off a couple times. Then Jackson came back, and then he had that crazy play where he like evaded pressure and then tossed to Marquise Brown to get
Yeah.
his one passing touchdown of the game. And that put the Ravens up 42-34. And um then with 104 left, on the very next drive, the Browns answer Mayfield to Kareem Hunt. And I just felt like that on that drive, there were a couple like huge chunk plays, and they didn't. I felt like maybe instead of dialing up pass plays for a couple of those downs, they should have gone with the run because their run game was working. They didn't get as many yards as Baltimore did, but it was still they were still 28 for 138, 4.9 average, and 4 touchdowns. So by no means was Cleveland's rushing poor.
And their offense had some good momentum at the end of the second half.
Yeah, I
They were
just felt like
really playing
they
along.
should have rushed the ball a couple times, run the ball a couple times. Um, maybe forced Ravens to use an extra timeout, burned a little bit more time off the clock, and then maybe the Ravens wouldn't have been able to get in field goal range. So I thought that was just um, a weird play, and or a weird, I guess, a weird coaching situation. And then of course they score to tie it, and then the Ravens get close enough to score the field goal, and it was like every pass that Jackson threw was just enough yards
Yep.
to keep getting them down the field. The tackling wasn't bad. It was just those dink and dunk plays to move you down because they had enough time. And then I don't know, man. Do you like those multilateral plays at the end of the game when teams try to like make magic happen with 3 seconds left? I don't know statistically, is that more likely to end up in it with a touchdown than a Hail Mary?
Ooh.
Because they were
I
backed
want to
up pretty
say
far,
no.
so I don't know
They're
if
pretty
Mayfield
far.
would have been able to throw
Well, here's the
80
thing.
yards or whatever.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. At the end of the first half, I don't know if you saw when he did the Hail Mary, he threw it 70 yards.
Yeah, that was a
um.
steroids throw for sure.
So like, could have probably chucked it 70, hoped for something, but you're right. When you're that far back, the laterals just. Yeah, I mean, what do you do? So that was kind of a hopeless situation, to be honest. Um,
Have you ever seen one of those turn into a touchdown?
well, there was that crazy Dolphins Patriots game a couple years ago for like 50, 60 yards that Kenyon Drake outran Rob Gronkowski. Don't know why he was out there, but he was. And yeah, that was for like 50 or 60 yards, I think. There's been there's the there's been a couple others I'm thinking of. I'm trying to think of, but it is rare. But so are Hail Marys. But I just don't know which one would easier to try to.
I guess you need to, it probably is based on where you are on the field. Like if if you get a touchback and start at the 25 and you have enough time for one play, you probably have to go with the lateral, because if you pass even a deep 70-yard ball, you're still 5 yards short of the end zone. And typically those Hail Mary passes, there's like 6 guys that jump up for it, and you're not going to be able to jump up for it, grab it, and then run 5 more yards. You usually just land flat on your bottom.
Yeah.
So my guess is it probably has to do with that, but I don't know. The Niners did it on Sunday too, and I don't like that. But I understand why teams do it in that situation. So then that ended in a safety, of course, to pour salt on the wound. So the Ravens won 47-42 officially. So I wanted to make a couple comments about Baker Mayfield, because he kind of struggled last year. Did too many commercials. This year, he's playing much better. The team overall just feels, on offense, feels really cohesive. Defensively, they have some issues, but I think it's more with the secondary. The play I wanted to make as a comment about Mayfield was, there was a play. The Ravens were up 34-20. It was right after the Browns blocked the PAT. And the Browns get the ball back. And Mayfield just had all day in the pocket on this play. And he got himself out of the pocket, and he could have run easily for the first down that was like 8 yards in front of him. And instead, he took the time, was patient, waited for his man wide open in the end zone, and got the touchdown. And then they got the 2-point conversion, and it was 34-28. But I just thought that was great vision, great patience. He used the fact that his O-line gave him protection. He wasn't just thinking in the short term. He was really looking to make something happen, because he knew his team was down by 14 points, right? So that's the kind of, I know people overuse this term, but that's the kind of football intelligence that you want in your quarterback. And I thought he displayed that pretty well on Monday night. And then I was going to do my best of the game, which I'm actually going to give to the Browns O-line, because Mayfield had all day to throw the ball, and his completion percentage wasn't that great. It was only 60%, but he was never sacked, and he had time to just pick apart that secondary every single play. The Ravens got essentially no pressure other than that one play that got flagged. And then the least of the game is none other than Lamar Jackson's cleats. I think he tripped like 6 times in the game. I was counting. I lost count at one point after like 4. But I've never seen someone trip that many times in a football game. Have you?
I don't think so.
I guess slipping is probably a better word. He was slipping on the grass. Not as much tripping on the grass, but yeah, that was bad. There were a couple times he got sacked just because he slipped.
Yeah.
He was sacked 4 times. So yeah, I just, I felt like this was a really good comeback game for Jackson, a game he really needed, because the Browns were knocking on the door of having their season be over, and he needed to come out and perform like that, and he did. And man, running out of the locker room still hurt like that, and coming out and rushing for touchdowns, and just he was doing his team all the favors he possibly could at the end there. So we'll see how, we'll see. Are we gonna get the 2019 Lamar Jackson for the last 3 games and see them sail into the playoffs, or are they gonna revert back to how they've been doing the last 4 or 5 games? We'll see. What do you think? Do you think that this was kind of a return to form game for Jackson?
Yeah, this was big. I mean, he wasn't super effective passing wise. He wasn't terrible, but he just didn't do as much. But he was really good on the ground, and he made some clutch plays. So And then how about I want to end with this is maybe this is another running for the least of the game is the refs on that 15 men on the field, and they needed a challenge in order to show their 15 men on the field. That's embarrassing. Refs should be embarrassed of themselves, and it's a disgrace that a team has to use one of their challenges. Even if they win, right, they still lose a possible challenge. 15 men on the field for the Ravens defense, and that wasn't called. And yeah, the fact that the Browns had to challenge that is just embarrassing. So
I learned actually that was a challengeable play or a challengeable situation because there's some things that aren't challengeable.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was crazy. Okay, so that wraps up our game of the week discussion for this week. We'll move into our second segment of the night, which is who wrecked face this week. And this is actually one of the less interesting weeks, but Joseph still had a few and I have a few. So Joseph will go ahead and go first on this one.
Yeah, actually, the ratio to who got wrecked versus who wrecked is pretty high. There's more people. I have 5, but 3 of them are good. All right, so Drew Lock was probably the only quarterback I could pick. Broncos, 21 of 27 for 280, so a high yards per attempt or yards per completion, and then 4 touchdowns and no picks. And then we have 2 team rushing attempts. So the Baltimore Ravens, right, 231 rushing yards on a 7.2 average for 5 touchdowns. And then the Philadelphia Eagles, the Philadelphia Phillies, the Philadelphia Eagles, 246 yards on a 6.8 average and 2 touchdowns. And then we have our who got wrecked. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're rushing. It's not like they played abominable Bills rush defense. 17 for 47. That's 0.8 average with 0 touchdowns. So
yikes.
Pretty dismal.
They're going to need to fix that.
Yeah. And then
did somebody get hurt or something, or what's going on with that?
Steelers, yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, that was I'm glad I picked the Bills. That worked out, like that one extra game on you this week. But I was more so thinking because of Josh Allen was going to play well, and he did okay. But I didn't think the Steelers were going to tank, drop that much. And then lastly here, our beloved Alex Smith. 8 for 19. Yeah. 8 for 19 for 57 yards.
The Niners did that, which I was happy with.
Which is a 3 yards attempt average. 0 touchdowns and 1 pick. For a 27.7 passer rating.
Beautiful. Yeah, we'll have to talk about what's going on with the Steelers in a minute when we talk about playoffs later. But so my picks were for running backs. I guess we have no receivers this week.
Nothing. There were some, but they
just kind of nothing that truly wrecked face. For running backs, this did wreck face. Derrick Henry again. At the end of the season, we'll have to look back and figure out how many times we've put his name on the board.
I think this is Derrick Henry's 4th time.
At least, yeah. 26 carries for 215 yards, 8.3 average, 2 touchdowns.
What's also amazing is his longest rush was 47 yards. So it wasn't like he had like a 90-yard rush.
Yeah. Just bulldozing all day. Jonathan Taylor for the Colts, 20 carries, 150 yards, 7.5 average, also 2 touchdowns. And then on defense, we had Antoine Winfield, safety for the Bucks, the first time we've called his name. He had 12 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 forced fumble. And Roquan Smith, who's been on here a couple of times, really talented linebacker for the Chicago Bears, 12 tackles and 2 sacks. Okay, so moving on to the meat of the night is our discussion of the playoff standings, where teams are, our predictions for who's going to win the division, who's going to win the wild card, who's going to get snubbed. So Joseph and I took kind of a little bit of a different approach with this one. I took the more kind of rote brute force, look at every team, figure out their records, and line them up. Joseph had kind of a more, uh, shall I say, philosophical approach to this. So I'll let Joseph kind of lead off with what he did, and then we'll dive into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, I'll start with the NFC because I want to end with the Dolphins. So I basically asked 5 total questions for the NFL and then worked through. So first question, the first 3 are for the NFC. So the first one is who will get the first seed? So the Packers should finish 12-4 at worst. I'm assuming a possible loss to the Titans there. Even if they finish 11-5, they still have the tiebreak with the Saints.
Yeah.
And the Saints will most likely finish 12-4 and maybe even 11-5. And what it's looking like is that Eagles' loss this last week was really bad for them.
Yeah,
that
it
really
was.
took away their chance. So, their only hope is to beat the Chiefs and then win out, and then hope the Packers also lose to the Titans. But that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot about to happen. So the Packers, in my opinion, are most likely going to get the first seed. And
I
if they
agree.
do beat the Titans in what is that week 16, then that's pretty much a lock. The next one is who will win the NFC West. So the Rams and the Seahawks are both 2-2 in the division, and there's still a remaining Seahawks-Rams games left. The Rams have won the first game so far. Seattle has a little bit easier schedule and will most likely win out their other games. But that Rams game, it's pretty much who wins gets it. What's interesting though is the Rams might give Wilson some trouble, but I have a bad feeling that the Seahawks are going to win out and go 12-4. And the next question becomes if they tie the Packers, who gets the 1 seed? But it'll still be the Packers because I checked because of the conference record. The way it's going to work out, if the Packers go 12-4, and so especially if it's that loss to the Titans, then luckily the Seahawks will not get the 1 seed.
Isn't it common games first?
No, it's conference for non-division teams. Conference games first.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I was looking up today trying to figure that out because there's some madness in the AFC. But yeah, so the Seahawks, unless the Packers and Saints just drop out crazy, Seahawks can win out and still not get the first seed, which is good for us. The Rams, if they win out, they I can't tell if they can get the 1 seed because it goes to common game. It would go to common games because their conference games would be tied. There's a possibility. I don't know the common games. I'll have to look at that later. But without looking into that, there's a possibility if the Rams win out, the Packers lose to the Titans, then the Rams could get the 1 seed. So, my opinion, I think the Seahawks are more likely to win the division. I have a feeling they're going to win out, and Russell Wilson is going to play great against the Rams. They're going to give him pressure. I know that's how they have won in the past. But I just have this feeling that the Rams will go probably 11-5, and the Seahawks will go 12-4 and win the division.
Okay.
Last question
All
for
right.
the NFC is who will get the 3 wild cards? So obviously, the other Rams Seahawks, like the loser of that, will get the first wild card. And then the last 2 spots are kind of clear. So Tampa, right? Tampa will go 9-7 or 10-6. Not going to do any worse or better than that. And the Cardinals will reasonably go 9-7, and I think they'll get that last spot. The Vikings have too much of a difficult schedule. The Bears are already 6-7, and the other teams are 5-8. So I think that's pretty much sealed up. The only difference is going to be if the Cardinals and Bucks both finish 9-7, and then who has the tiebreak for that. Because right now they're also tied. And then for the AFC.
So can I interject real quick? So a couple comments about the NFC. So I agree. I think the Packers are going to get first. I had them at 12-4, and then I had the Saints at 11-5. I think Taysom Hill's not doing them a whole lot of favors. I don't know when they're supposed to get Breeze back, but I think they're going to go 1-2 in their last 3. I don't think they're going to beat the Saints or beat the Chiefs. So then I actually had the Rams beating the Seahawks and taking the NFC West at 11-5. And then I have the football team winning the NFC East at 7-9.
Which isn't, that's not as terrible as we were fearing we were thinking, a 5-win Cowboys or Eagles team was going to be the division winner. So if the NFC least spits out a 7-19, it won't be such a tragedy.
Yeah, I saw a statistic. The football team played the Niners this last weekend, and they put up a statistic that said that the football team's second half defense is the best in the NFL.
Interesting.
They have a pretty talented D line. So, wild card wise, I agree. I think the loser of the Rams Seahawks will take the first spot, so the 5th seed. The Bucks will take the 6th seed, probably 10-6. And then I think the Cardinals will be either 8-8 or 9-7. If somehow, say, the Niners are able to beat the Cardinals, because the Cardinals still have 2 division games left. If they somehow lose, or maybe lose to the Eagles, and they go 8-8, what I'm not sure about is if the Bears, if they beat the Vikings this weekend, are probably going to beat the Jaguars. So if they beat the Vikings and then beat the Jaguars, they'd have 8 wins. And then the question becomes who gets the tie break between those two teams. And I don't know for wild card, is it the same rule where they go to conference games first?
Yeah, for non-division teams, like it goes to conference games first. And right now,
so the Bears are 5-5. So if they beat the Vikings but then lose to the Packers, they'd be 6-6. And then the Cardinals, if they were to be 8-8, that would mean they would lose all 3 of their games left are conference games, so they would also be 6-6. So then I guess it would go to common games after that.
Yeah.
And that I'm not sure. I don't have it'll take too much time to go into the weeds for that. But yeah, so that could potentially be an interesting tiebreak situation, and I think it'll all come down. If the Vikings win this weekend, I think that pretty much locks the Cardinals in that 7th spot.
Because they beat the Bears? Yeah, because the Vikings are probably going to lose to the Saints.
Right. I think the Vikings will be 8-8, and they have 1 game less conference-wise. So
yeah, I see.
Okay, so go ahead with the NFC or the AFC.
All right, AFC. 2 questions. The first question is who will win the AFC South? Been actually kind of surprising, exciting. The Titans and the Colts. See them both at 9-4 is a little surprising. And they've had some good wins and like they're beating each other up. So the Colts will lose at least 1 more. They're going to go probably 11-5. I think the Titans are going to do the same. They're also going to go 11-5. They have a tough game against the Packers. But the Titans have the division lead. Will most likely keep it. So the Titans are more likely to, if the Titans losses against the Packers, win the division at 5-1, and the Colts already have 2 division losses, so they can't make that up. So I think the Titans are more likely to win the South.
Yep, I had the exact same analysis on that one.
Cool. And then the wild card spot. Now this is where it gets fun. So actually, if you wouldn't mind, yeah, this is gonna be fun. So, who will get the last wild card spot? Well, that presumes who the first 2 spots are going to be. But that's more likely. The Browns and the Colts, probably both at 11-5. And the Browns beat the Colts, so the Browns get the 5th seed, and the Colts will get the 6th seed. So that leads to just madness, 7th seed. Between the Ravens, Dolphins, and Raiders. Now, Jeremy, I don't know if you would know this, but which of those teams controls their destiny?
Give me a second to figure that out. So,
but you can't look at their schedules.
Oh, that's what? I can't just get. I'm not. Well, then it's just me guessing out of thin air, which is awkward.
So that's what I'm asking.
Well. So, I'm looking at the schedules anyway. So I think the answer is well, okay, so the Dolphins play the Raiders. Which means that one of those 2 teams is going to end up with at least 1 more loss. Which would give a 6th loss to Miami or a 7th loss to the Raiders. The Ravens don't play either of those teams, and have 3 pretty easy games left. So when you say control your own destiny, I'm not really 100% sure what you mean by that, but I actually put the Browns, the Ravens as winning out.
So the answer is the Dolphins. And my reasoning for that is if you give the scenario where each team wins out, who makes the playoffs, and the Dolphins are the only one that are guaranteed. If the Ravens win out and the Dolphins win out, Dolphins get the playoff spots because they'll have the 1 game advantage on the conference game. If the Raiders win out, then and the Ravens win out, the Ravens get it and not the Raiders. The Dolphins are the only team that if they win out, they're guaranteed a playoff spot.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Which is interesting because a few weeks ago, I think the Raiders were more in the driver's seat. Especially after that Dolphins had that crushing loss against the Broncos. So I'll just say this. The Ravens, there's still some madness here in like a minutes, but the Dolphins losing against the Broncos a few weeks ago and the Ravens winning against the Browns last night, it didn't, in no way did it eliminate the Dolphins, right? But that really hurt their chances.
It did.
The Ravens have a much easier schedule. The Dolphins have the hardest schedule remaining, so that helps with the Raiders because they're down a game. Yeah, I mean the Dolphins have a harder schedule. They have Patriots, Raiders, Bills. And the last game's in Buffalo. Both,
yeah, if you guys lose that Patriots game, you're done.
No, yeah, the Patriots game's a must-win, and I even think the Raiders game is a must-win. So here's where it gets really crazy. So if the Raiders win out, they're 10-6. Wait, no, I already talked. If the Raiders lose to the Dolphins, right, who then will also assume lose to the Bills, then they're 10-6. They need the Ravens to lose. It's not just losing a number of games, it's losing to certain teams. They need the Ravens to lose to the Bengals or the Jags. And we have to beat the Patriots. Then we'll get the wild card. Because it'll go to common games. Because the Dolphins have all 3 AFC games. The Ravens have 2 AFC, and they play the Giants in the NFC. So losing against the Giants, they can lose against the Giants, and we can both finish 10-6. And the Ravens will take the wild card spot because conference games will be tied, the common games will be tied, and then he goes to strength of schedule or victory, and the Ravens are way better than the Dolphins. So if the Dolphins win 2 out of 3, and we assume the loss is against the Bills, the Ravens have to lose against the Jags or the Bengals.
Yeah, I think that's unlikely.
I know. That's what's a bummer about the Broncos loss with the Dolphins and the Browns win. The Browns lost. If the Browns won last night, I think the Dolphins probably would be way more likely to get into the playoffs. Because the Ravens would be 7-6, and even if they won out, they would have that extra conference game loss.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a bummer that even if the Ravens tie and they lose to the Giants, it has to be a loss because here's the thing. I looked at their common games. And it's more than just common games because I found a weird thing. It's like, well, what happens if one team plays another team once and one team plays that same team twice? Well, they count all the games. So it's more like common opponents, right? Because the Ravens only played the Patriots once, but the Dolphins played the Patriots twice. But those 3 games all count. So it's more like common opponents. So they have 5 common games. Right now in those games, the Dolphins are 2-2. If they beat the Patriots, they have to. They absolutely have to. They'll be 3-2. The Ravens are currently 1-2 those games, but the remaining 2 games are Jaguars-Bengals, which are equal. So if they win, they also go 3-2. So that's the dilemma. So I think the Ravens are in the driver's seat or so of those 3 teams and are more likely to get it. But if the Dolphins win out, they will get a spot guaranteed. So that's where the madness happens. But I think I'm giving a slight edge to the Ravens because of last night.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think the Browns and the Ravens are probably both going to be 11-5, And between the two, I actually don't know if they both end up 11-5, who will get the tiebreak, because it comes down to whether one of those wins for the Browns is against the Steelers or not. But
Yes, the division.
but I think they're going to make both going to make the wild card, and then I think the Colts are going to be 11-5 and also make the wild card. So I think the Dolphins. I definitely see the Dolphins as a 10-6 team. But that would mean they would miss out by a game, which would be pretty crushing, right? To be 10-6 after so many years of faltering and that not be enough to make the playoffs on a year where we expanded the playoffs.
And Tom Brady's gone.
Yeah. So yeah, and then I had the Raiders at 9-7. So yeah, I see all your reasoning. I think it makes sense, and I just think that the Ravens have the easiest remaining schedule, and unless there's some crazy upset, then I think they're going to probably win out and get one of the spots.
I think the Broncos game is it. I think we talked about it a few weeks ago. That Broncos game. Really...
Yeah, that Broncos game was really bad, and then I think last night was also really bad.
Yeah.
So as far as divisions, so 5 weeks ago it looked like the Steelers were going to take it all. I think the Chiefs are. I think the Chiefs are going to go 14-2. I think they're going to beat the Saints, and I think they've got one other easy game on their schedule. They've got Falcons, Chargers. They're definitely going to win at least one of those.
Yeah, they might go 15-1, dude.
They might. They might. Yeah, I don't think they're going to need. Here's the thing. I actually don't think they're even going to need that 14th win, because I think the Bills are going to go 12-4. And then I think the Steelers are also going to go 12-4. And actually the Bills would beat the Steelers because they beat them head to head. So the Bills would get second seed, Steelers would get third, and then I have the Titans at 11-5 being the fourth seed.
So that means if the Chiefs beat the Saints, they might rest the next two. Or not play as much. Right? It's possible. They see how other things are played out, and it's mathematically impossible.
Yeah, it depends on. Let's see. They don't have any primetime games, so they'll have to wait for the result of the Bills. I guess it kind of depends on if the Bills are playing Broncos Patriots, so I don't know. I was kind of thinking they would maybe lose. They would beat the Broncos and then maybe lose one of their division games.
But the Bills already lost to the Chiefs. So if the Bills are locked in,
that's true. Yeah, so head to head, even if they won out, and the Chiefs win next week, then they would win. And then the Steelers, I guess the Steelers are still technically a threat, because if the Steelers win out,
yeah, or
they could potentially. I don't know what the tie break is.
Well, depending on the conference games, it would have to go.
It would be its conference record. So the Chiefs are 10-1 in the conference right now. The Steelers are 8-1, but the Steelers still have to play the Browns, Bengals, and Colts. So yeah, I think the Chiefs are a pretty safe bet at this point.
I agree. Which I mean, they're looking like the team, dude. They're looking like the team of the AFC.
Yeah, they don't have an excuse not to win it all this year, in my opinion.
I think the Packers. I think Rodgers is playing ridiculous, but the Saints are just. They just don't have all the cogs coming together as well. Even if they get Breeze back, the Saints aren't just. I don't know, and yeah, the Bucks aren't as dominant as we thought they could be. The Packers are honestly the only team. The Packers and the Seahawks, if they get really hot, but I think the Chiefs have no excuse not make it to the Super Bowl, and then little excuse not to win.
Yeah, I think the best matchups against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl would probably be the Rams and I don't know, maybe a team like the Cardinals. I'm thinking of another team with a mobile quarterback that'll give their defense fits. I could also see an interesting game against the Seahawks. I don't want that, but I could see that. I don't know. Who do you think are the two? Who do you think are the two toughest matchups for the Chiefs from the NFC?
So my first one I'm thinking of, not necessarily the first overall, but I think of the Packers only because I think Aaron Rodgers is playing lights out football, and he like very little reason to think that he couldn't just throw 4 or 5 touchdowns on the Chiefs, and that it would have a shootout with Mahomes, and that Mahomes would have to match Aaron Rodgers' play. Like right now, Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes are the two best quarterbacks in the league right now. But Rodgers is just a tiny step ahead of him. And if Rodgers has more experience, right, he's more clutch, he's cool, more ice in his veins, and if he's getting hot and playing well, even if their defense isn't playing great, he would force Mahomes to have to get into a shootout with him, and to sustain that. The next one, I'm curious. The Rams. That's actually the Rams are weird. We did not think the Rams were going to be well this year. I still have a little bit of iffiness on them, but they could give Mahomes pressure. Yeah, the Seahawks are weird. I feel like the Cardinals are better than a 7-6. Had a little bit of a slump the last few weeks. I feel like they're better than 7-6. I'm gonna say Packers, and I think I'm just gonna agree with you on Rams.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the Rams. The reason I picked Rams is because they have a really good pass rush, and they're allowing the third lowest points per game. So I just think that a team that I don't trust a team to get into a shootout with the Chiefs and win. The only team that might win would be the Packers, but even then, I think it's a coin toss.
Okay.
And I don't think any of the other teams in the NFC have that kind of firepower. Maybe if like the Bucks really turn it on or something with Brady, but I don't know. I don't see. There's not that many teams I think that could beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, I don't think the Bucks are not even going to make it to the NFC Championship. I think this year will be somewhat of a bust for them. I think this year was NFC Championship or bust, and next year it's Super Bowl or bust.
Yeah, well, they would be if the Bucks land where I think they're going to land, which is the 6th seed, then they would play
Saints or the Rams.
Yeah, that'll be tough. Okay. So that's kind of our situation for the playoffs, and we're gonna do. Joseph and I talked. We're gonna do one more MVP look, not this week, but maybe next week or the week after, once things kind of get a little closer to the end, because we still got 3 games left, and it's a pretty tight race among the top few. So yeah, we'll take a look at the MVP soon. So yeah, that's our playoffs segment. Notably, no 49ers. The loss to the football team this weekend was it did not mathematically eliminate the Niners, but it effectively eliminated the Niners, who are now 5-8. They really needed to win that game. Interestingly, going into this last week, there were no NFC teams that were mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. And after this week, after this last weekend, only the Falcons are mathematically eliminated. So I can't remember the last time with only 3 weeks to go that only one team has been mathematically even the Panthers, who are 4-9, are not mathematically eliminated yet.
And the Cowboys at 4-9.
Yeah, which is just insane.
The Lions at 5. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to our 4th segment of the night. Commentators say the darndest things. This one's a classic, I think. In the game of Washington versus San Francisco this last weekend, the commentator said, "If you eliminate the turnovers, your chance of winning goes way up. If you turn the ball over, your chances go way down." Thank you, John Madden.
Yeah, and he probably gets $1 million to say that.
$1 million to fill airtime with banal comments like that. Okay, so segment 5 are our predictions, starting with tricky picks. Joseph gained one on me this week. I was 3-4. He was 4-3. So he's up by 2 now. 24-18 to 22-20. So what are our picks for this week, Joseph?
All right, so we have. I felt a little burnt out, to be honest. Not really proud of these. Go for it. So, will the Niners have 2 or more rushing touchdowns? For context, the last 3 games have been 0-1-1.
Yes.
All right, same. What will be larger, the victory deficit, Steelers Bengals game, or in the Rams Jets game?
Sorry, say that one again.
The victory. So I'm not saying who's going to win, but what's going to be the largest? Who's going to have the largest victory deficit? The Steelers Bengals game or the Rams Jets game?
So the largest score delta,
Yes.
I think it's going to be Rams Jets.
All right, pick the same. All right. Which quarterback will have the highest combination of passing completions plus total touchdowns plus receivers completed to minus sacks minus interceptions?
Okay, let me look up Aaron Donald real quick.
Passing completions, total touchdowns, receivers completed to. Those are the positives. The negatives are sacks and interceptions. I did not look up context for this. So obviously the 3 MVP candidates are Rodgers, Mahomes, Wilson.
Well, when you're betting money, the best thing to do is just wing it, right? So who?
Well, at least I'm not cheating. At least I didn't look up the context and then not tell you.
Okay, that's fair. So, and we're talking basically Rodgers, Mahomes, right?
And Wilson.
And was okay. So the Packers play the Panthers. Just for context, Packers play Panthers. Mahomes plays the Saints, and Wilson plays the football team. So I'm gonna say Rodgers.
Oh, I went the same. All right, another week where we're the same. Need to try to get into Jeremy's mind and think of picks to where he's going to pick different than me and find those. Well, I guess I can't complain too much because I have a 2-game lead. So pick the same. It's not going to hurt me.
Well, Peyton Manning isn't in the league anymore, so you can't find some pick where I would try to pick against it just because you're biased. You have to find players that you're biased towards, and then I would pick the other way. That's the key. I'm giving you the answers.
I'm biased towards winners. biased towards greatness. Yeah. All right.
I mean, Joe Montana's not in the league anymore either, so. Okay. All right. On that great note, on the note of the greatest quarterback of all time, we'll go on to our records. So this last week, or the last 2 weeks, since we didn't have a show last week, I was 18-13. I had a 9-7 week and a 9-6 week. And then Joseph was in reverse order. And then Joseph was 19-12. He had a 9-6 week and a 10-6 week this last week. We had 3 different games, 3 different picks this last week, and Joseph picked up 2. So that's how he gained the game on me. So I am now only 3 games up on Joseph at 134, 72, and 1, which is 65%. Joseph is 131, 75, and 1 at 63.6%. Okay. So let's wind up for our week 15 picks. So I'll start and then we'll go every other. First game is Chargers at Raiders. I'm going Raiders.
Same.
The Raiders.
Raiders. Bills, Broncos, Bills.
Same. Panthers, Packers. I'm going Packers.
Bucks, Falcons. This one was actually tough for me. But I'm going Bucks.
I'm going Bucks as well. 49ers at Cowboys. This may surprise you. I'm going Cowboys.
I'm going Cowboys too.
Okay.
Lions, Titans, Lions.
Uh, wait, sorry. What what are you going?
Lions, Titans, going Titans.
Okay, yeah, same here. Texans, Colts. I'm going Colts.
Same. Patriots, Dolphins, Dolphins.
Same. Bears, Vikings. This is one that I think we have a chance to maybe differ on. I'm going Bears.
Yeah, I'm going Vikings. That's one of that and the Bucks tough ones I put next to. So I'm going Vikings. We finally differed.
I think I honestly think you've burned me more on Bears games than any other team. Like you've picked up more games on Bears picks. I'm serious. I'm not making that up. I'm actually serious. I think if I went back, I would discover that that's true.
I actually think. All right, Seahawks, Redskins. Seahawks.
Same. Although I think they're gonna sack Wilson like 5 times and give him fits, but they just can't move the ball, so the Seahawks will win by like a touchdown. It'll be one of those really frustrating kind of games. Jaguars at Ravens. I'm going Ravens.
Same. Which, by the way, so this is my eliminator. My eliminator is still going.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So who did you pick for this week?
I picked Titans over Jags. I think Titans played.
No, wait. You mean for I mean for this upcoming week?
Ravens over Jags.
Oh, okay. And then did you already map out your last two?
So I've been mapped out for like the last 6 weeks. I've been fully mapped out, I think, for the last like 6 weeks. So like I think the last 7 to 8 weeks of the season, I think we're fully already mapped out.
So you decided to map out as soon as I got eliminated? I mean,
I think it was the week before.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the week before you got eliminated. Well, I had no other choice. Like, there's only one other game I could change. That's this week. It's Cardinals. I actually thought about changing it. I want to root for the Jags to beat the Ravens for the Dolphins' chance. But the Ravens is the best choice. But yeah, dude, based on the games I picked in the first half, the first 2/3, I almost had to map out the last 7 or so games because there weren't any other choices based on who I already picked. Like I picked all the clear ones that were remaining left. Yeah, my eliminator is still going. I'm tied for first. How many people have first? So yeah, kind of crazy that at 14 points.
Dang, man. Well, you keep us updated each week. I want to know if you make it all the way. All right, so we picked Ravens, right?
Yeah, so it's my turn now.
Okay.
Jets, Rams. Sorry, Jets. I'm going to continue your perfect season, so the Rams will win.
Same. Eagles at Cardinals. I'm going Cardinals.
Same. Kansas City, Saints. I wish Drew Brees was in this game. That'd be great, but he's not. I'm going Chiefs.
Same. Browns at Giants. This was actually kind of a tough one, but I went Browns.
Same. And then Steelers, Bengals. Steelers have to win this. They need to win.
Yeah, same. So we had
one.
We won.
Bears,
the Bears.
Bears.
Okay, so let me highlight that one for next week.
Okay, if I pick one more, I'm only
then you got 2 weeks left and only two games to pick up. So.
Oh man, maybe you need to start a fire in my house to stop me.
To just cancel the show for the rest of the season. So, by the way, when I said the Raiders thing earlier, I remembered. So Chris Berman is doing like a after the weekend in the NFL highlights thing, his highlights reel, and he had a great line. It was this was I think like 3 weeks ago or something, after the Dolphins won. I forget who they beat. He said Tua can do like Tua Tagovailoa, whatever. And then he said the Patriots are bacon, which I didn't understand what that meant, but I liked the Tua can do just imagine him saying that in his voice.
Tua can do
Yeah. All right, so no buys this week, so we got the full slate of 16 games. Those are our picks. Our game of the week this week is none other than Chiefs at Saints. I think this game, like we were talking about earlier, if the Chiefs win, that pretty much guarantees their first seed. If the Saints win, that makes things a lot more interesting in the NFC lineup. The Saints actually have a chance to knock off the Packers for first if they can win, but I don't think they can. So like Joseph and I both picked the Chiefs. We're expecting the Chiefs to win, but watch the game with us. Come prepared with your notes, your analysis, and we'll talk about that game for next week's show. We're doing a show next week, I assume. It would be the 22nd, so it's a few days before Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay, so join us at the Practice Squad at 7:30 next week on the 22nd. All right, so that's a wrap. If you enjoyed tonight's episode or any of our past episodes, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, as those are free ways for you to support our show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at the Practice Squad and at Neuralizer_. Just as a reminder, if you've missed past episodes, you can watch or listen to them right here on my YouTube channel. The show is online immediately after we go live, so if you missed any of our foolish banter, you can always rewind and start from the beginning. As always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.